Okay. Hello out there, heavenly humans. This is the Glenn Cobbin Sr. One Heartbeat Podcast, and we got a special, very special date for you, for the public out here today with Mataka Askari. You know, the one Heartbeat Podcast. We demonstrate how animals, human, and plants can coexist. And we're gonna have a free for all podcast because I can streamline this podcast to be one type of podcast, but the brother that I'm interviewing today, his mind is so abstract and he's very affluent with what he knows because he's a studious brother. And I don't do no introductions. I just tell you a little bit about him and I let him go, and then we'll start the podcast out. So we're gonna let you come on in with Mataka Askari.
Hey, how's everybody doing? Mataka Askari. Yes. It's a privilege and an honor to be here, and hopefully I can share some information that will be beneficial to whoever is listening. That's my mission. That's how I get my rewards and my blessings. So hopefully I can share something through my experience and my studies that can be helpful.
Oh, right on, brother. Hey, good afternoon, brother. Welcome to the One Heartbeat Podcast, sponsored by Destiny of Hope, helping our people excel. Also, Limbs Limo LLC, family owned and operated by Brandon Lewis Cobbins. We're going to start off. We're going to let Mataka say a few things about himself. My topics is very, very unique because I got a then, now, and future. And the then is for what he was about when he was inside the womb, outside the womb, and then now what he's doing now and what his future plans are going to be. And I'm going to let him pick the topic, and I'm going to be the driving force behind these topics. So Mataka, then give me your come up, man. Give me your come up.
I'm from the north side of St. Louis, and if anybody who has ever lived in any inner city community that's dominated by poverty and unhealthy coping mechanisms, we know the type of products that produced. So I, not being strong enough, was maneuvered into an area of activity that was self-sabotaging. It's funny because the Western educational system is a system that inculcates doubt and destroys the confidence of particularly like black people, brother. So when we look at that, right, and we see that I was reared in a system that told me that I was not good enough as an individual, and I felt like that system wasn't beneficial to me, like I bucked against it. I quit school when I was 15 years old. I felt more purpose, I felt more drive, I felt more connection, and I felt that I could reach the ends of what it is that I endeavored to do in the streets. But what I didn't understand was one side was a trap that taught me that, hey, the only way that you can make it in this society because your natural self is not good enough is how well you can imitate the people whose image dominates everything. And then if you don't want that, the streets being available, the next choice in my vicinity, right, in my immediate area, that was a trap too, because that either leads to an untimely death or it leads you to prison. So what happens is you get locked up in this identity issue where you are not your true self. You have to mimic and imitate somebody else because this society has criminalized and vilified you, and you're really not wanted unless you can be exploited. I bucked that. I wasn't feeling that. I didn't need nobody to tell me that. Absolutely. So I went to the streets. But the streets was also a socially engineered thing that was designed to send me down the road of disaster.
When you say socially engineered, when you say you got two systems working here, let me know the foundation of the system and where the systems originated from and why the systems were originated.
So the systems were originated from, I want to be clear about a couple of things. So we use the term racism. I think racism is so sanitized right now and so misunderstood that we just apply it to anybody who we feel like is prejudiced. And I absolutely disagree with that, right? I just feel like it's impossible for us as black people to be racist because we do not have the power to interfere with anybody else's forward mobility or movement.
Hold that thought. I told you I'm going to be the driving force behind this. You know, Mataka, I know your educational background. I know your plight. But I want you to tell the world, and the only way you're going to tell the world what you're talking about is look right into the camera when you speak.
Oh, okay. My fault. I'm kind of camera shy. But yeah, so I feel like I don't like to use the word racism, so I use the word white supremacy so that we can identify what I think are the culprits who are responsible and the system that was set in play. So in order to enslave a people, right, you cannot enslave a people who still have a healthy connection to their own culture and identity. So one of the things that was done to us was the removal of our culture and identity through violence, right? They literally killed and beat our knowledge of who we were, our natural systems of spiritual cultivation. They took that up out of us. And then they replaced that with one that was designed to indoctrinate us to make us better tools of service for the people who had enslaved us. So when I say better tools of service, what I mean is that everything that denigrated black and elevated white was reinforced by every sector of society, every area of people activity, educational. It was all in the schools. Every scientific discipline at that time backed it up, from anthropology to biology to different forms of medicine. When we look at the spiritual systems, when we go into these religious houses, we see images that look like the people who are whipping us on our backs with the whips. So you are oppressed and you are savior, right? So whatever way we turn, we got to see you.
That's right. That's right.
We got to see you. So not only am I running, I'm running to you from you.
That's right.
So the system was designed to keep us trapped and make us think that the only way that we could have redemption, the only way that we could have freedom, the only way that we could remove ourselves from our situation or lessen our plight and accept it, right, was to turn to a savior that looked just like the guy who had just had me chained to the post and whipped me. He actually looked like his cousin. Right. And so they, up through the process of time, right, as these social systems begin to change, just because physical slavery was over, right, the ideologies that were designed to enslave us and keep us in bondage, they still remained, and they still remain today. Right.
Okay, good, brother. You look, I really don't have to ask you no questions, but I like, so I can be just a little bit part of your show.
No, I want you to ask questions.
Because see, what you said, you've answered like 5 questions in one. So what I'm going to do, I want to take what you said, and I want you to tell us, the world, how did our parents and our parents' parents and our parents' parents' parents that knew what you know, what would happen to them if they tried to buck the system?
Multiple things. So depending on the degree of your popularity and influence, we have multiple lessons replete throughout history where people's lives were extinguished, killed. Right, that's it. Ultimate. They took you out. And your family too. Nobody was safe. The minute that you rebelled against the oppression, even verbally, right? You didn't even have to just say, I'm finna do something physically. Just you speaking up, right, against oppressive forces by defending your humanity, defending the humanity of your loved ones, you subjected yourself to harsh punishment and potential death. And your family too. Wow. And your family too. So we have seen not just death, though. We've seen them destroy lives through other means, economic means, political means, social means, right? Through propaganda devices. So like the media, now we got social media, but like newspaper, a print media, like television in various forms. So anytime you have had an effective person or a person who was effective at addressing this stuff and they felt like that person was gaining too much momentum, they acted to sabotage that person's life or their liberty. All you got to do is look at the counterintelligence program or COINTELPRO. Yes, sir.
Oh man, oh, you getting deep.
We talking about government sanctioned stuff.
Absolutely. And those who want to say, okay, we want to forgive the oppressor, right?
Right.
But do we have to continue to take what the oppressor is putting out to us?
Forgiveness is for you, not for the oppressor.
My man, that's right. Absolutely.
Right.
So what do we do? What do we do about the oppressor? What kind of system can we put in place to counteract what the oppressors do that is continuing to do to us right now?
The most powerful tool that we have at our availability to ensure, right, that we could start changing the tide of how we are being treated in this country is our financial power. We don't use our money the way we should use it. And I'm going to give you a prime example. Even in our economic vulnerability, we have people coming from certain Islamic countries who come into our community, right, and they exploit us in our vulnerability, and they make fortunes in our community, right, by peddling the wares of death, right? They come from Islamic countries, but they slanging that alcohol and they got them hog head cheese sandwiches. So they coming in, violating the tenets of their own belief, chasing money, then exploiting our community, extracting it up out of our community, exporting it to somewhere else, and never give back to our community.
And they call themselves Muslims on top of that, am I right?
Yeah, some of them. They'll say Assalamu alaikum. I'm gonna say what's up. Yeah,
wow.
What's up?
Yeah, that's I have to laugh because you're a very strong brother, man, Mataka. And what you've done, you have in my little the words I put down, the then, now, and the future, you've hit on all of them. But what I want to do is ask you personally.
Yes, sir.
Malcolm X said, education is the passport to the future. Can you divide or explain what type of education Malcolm was talking about?
Yeah, Malcolm X was talking about the education of the knowledge of self. The word education, right, is rooted in the word educe. It means to draw or pull out. It don't mean to pour a bunch of stuff in to indoctrinate. There's a difference between training. Training is a system where I inundate you, flood you with a bunch of information designed to make you think a particular way. Education is a system where I feed you certain information, not to control you, but to draw out of you those natural qualities and those natural talents. And so that's the difference between Western education and African education. African education was designed to identify those qualities and raise you from your spiritual infancy into the full realization of your divine potential. And here's an example. In certain cultures, African cultures, you did not get your permanent name until you were 7 years old. They sent you through a series of systems of learning so that those people who were trained could be able to identify those natural talents, and they matched you to those. So your nature, the things that you were brought into existence with, they had a system that was designed to help them identify the natural things that you had, or your nature. So the name that they gave you signified or was significant to your nature. So if you think about how your name, right, is supposed to be relevant to your nature. So as people have stolen our system of education and translated into their own language, right, if your name is supposed to signify or indicate your nature, take the word signify and nature and combine it into a compound word and you get signature. So if I ask you what your signature is or signify your nature, you give me your name. It ain't like that no more. So that's the difference. We got a system of education that's designed to draw out what's naturally in you and cultivate that so you can fulfill your purpose. And then we got a system that trains you to fulfill a role that somebody else is about to exit. So because they too old and we need to slide you in there, and we got to train you how to do it so you can keep our system intact.
All right. Good stuff, man. Again, this is Glenn Cobbin Sr., One Heartbeat Podcast. And we have Mataka Askari here. One Heartbeat standing for human nature and animals coexisting. Sponsored by Destiny of Hope. Helping our people excel. Can be reached anytime at 573-268-5192. And also Limbs Limo LLC, family owned and operated. Brandon Cobbin is the head of the helm there. We're going to go to now. Man, this is so much good stuff here, man. We could be here all day. But I won't. Mataka, Mataka supposed to been down here if y'all don't know that. And this is what
my head too. I said I'm coming, brother.
Yeah, because this brother right here is hard to impress me, and this brother impressed me. He impresses me because I know he's studious. I know he's real. I know he's coming out of the mud so deep down in the mud. Even when he was incarcerated, he may speak on that. And now his mind and his body, his soul, his spirit, ain't none of this incarcerated no more. And he's a force to be reckoned with. But that all being said, I believe that the question I'm going to ask him is about the people that look like him, that look like us. How do we inform them that we need to uplift each other so that we can become one? Or is that a valid question?
It's a valid question. It's a tremendous task because we've had people who are clearly smarter than me, right? Clearly, who have tried to do it and they've had momentary success. But again, we had intrusive forces that set up into our organizations and they disrupted them and destroyed them and disbanded them. And the effectiveness of what it is that they were capable of doing at that time is gone. And the crazy part about it is we won't even look back, right, and take the successes from the things that our ancestors did and our forefathers did in the past and bring them into today, right, and then combine that with what we know now to produce the best system of education for us. We still sending our people to the same schools to be taught where they teach you Christopher Columbus discovered America. Let me say this. Let me say this.
Come on, let's go.
I can send you a list of names right now. I got partners in the penitentiary who discovered property that was owned by other people. However, the difference is they're not heralded as explorers, voyagers, or discoverers. They call robbers and burglars.
All right, my man.
And they doing time.
They're doing
They
time.
don't have no national holiday.
That's right.
So
that's right.
let's diversify the educational curriculum. Forget just diversifying the staff. You're going to have a bunch of people that look like us that's teaching the same information. And that's dangerous.
That's right.
That's dangerous because when somebody looks like me, I automatically develop a trust as a child because I know my position is to look to my adult elder for guidance. And so if you not being knowledgeable of what it is that this education has in it or this system of training that has in it that's harmful, you will become a deliverer of information that keeps your people indoctrinated and functioning beneath their potential.
So therefore, we won't reach no goals at all.
Man, it's only certain things that's useful in this system for us, brother.
Okay, Mataka, you know, in the city, I've been to every big city in the United States, in these so-called United States, right? And there, you can get a group of people that can help the so-called. Let me qualify this, so everybody can understand what I'm getting ready to say. The so-called black man, the so-called African-American, so-called Asiatic, okay? There is a bunch of organizations that's ran by in Atlanta, people that look like us. Why come we can't do it here in Columbia? Are we too spread out? Are we not enough in number? Give me some information about that.
We competing against each other.
Wow. So they're not competing in Atlanta?
If they competing together against other forces.
That's right.
Right. We compete against each other. One group of people will pop up with a business that's black, and then 3 weeks later somebody else will imitate the same. Well, wait a minute now. How we all gonna do what? The thing is, we don't know how to work together because we are the victims of a system of indoctrination that inculcated in us self-hate.
Self-hate. Okay.
Self-hate. I really can't work with you. I can say it. Right. And I can understand intellectually the need to do it, but I've been so deeply indoctrinated that the belief system that is deep in my soul won't even let me use what I know that's right with my intellect to help me bring what I have to the table to be able to make us better as a people, because it's deeply embedded in my soul and it's been genetically transmitted down through social learning and various other things. What is it called? It's called social learning theory. And then genetically, we know that certain information is stored in certain ways we think is stored in our being, brother. So we trying to, as the Bible calls it, generational curses. I call it transgenerational behavior patterns, right? That root back to slavery.
Ooh. What about forced experiences? Does that play a part in anything?
Forced experiences?
Yeah.
What you mean?
It mean that we were forced to do exactly what the oppressor wanted us to do. And that experience kept on being indoctrinated.
Absolutely. So it's called social learning theory. So let me give you an example. So how did we even believe that? If you look at our history, the majority of us who came over here were not associated with Christianity as a religion.
Absolutely.
Right. So when we look at that, right, the question arises then, how are we celebrating Easter today?
Absolutely. I mean, whoever
celebrates. Right. So my thing is, we have a people who were stripped of what was naturally theirs, their system of spiritual cultivation, and it was inculcated in them, beating them. You gonna accept this, and this is the only way you got out, and you ain't gonna even get that out until you die. But if you work for me and slave, be good to your master.
Be good to your master.
Right? Then you got something promised when you die. You gonna be up there with another white Jesus who not gonna do as bad as the one down here. So when you have been taught that, and then as a protective mechanism, right, that women taught that to the male child, so that the male child, whose natural instinct is to rebel against oppression, so that instinct can be quelled, so that child would not be killed, right? And then some of them believed it. So when you study the history, brother, especially when you look in West Africa, when they went in, they used three main things: the Bible, the bottle, and the bullet.
That's right.
They came in with a spiritual system, right? That weakened us ideologically and made us question what we had been believing in. And then they seduced a major amount or a nice part of the population. So here you go. I done separated you from your people, right? By making you adopt my belief system and making you look at them like they're pagans, polytheists, and idolaters, right? And then those who don't fall victim to that, I'm going to bring this bottle. So now I'm going to turn the rest of y'all out on this strong alcohol. So now I got people who I've enslaved, I put in bondage ideologically, people who I put in bondage to substances. And then whoever left, if y'all ain't fall victim to them, I ain't got nothing else but this bullet for y'all. I'm going to wipe y'all out. And so those are the three things, the number one tool that has been used. And so this has been transmitted down all the way. That and several other things, the N word, like we can identify some stuff that started with other people that was forced on us that we still practice today.
Absolutely. Absolutely, man.
You can trace this stuff back. It's not a mystery. It's not hard to find. You can trace it back and identify it.
They have the oppressor, okay? They have okay. Let me get. Tell me about this right here. We have people who know the history of self, know the history of, and culture of their own people, but still refuse to identify themselves as who they were born to be. So that's, to me, that's an interesting thing for a man to live in a body that's not his, or live in an identity that was forced upon him, or and then he got an opportunity to get out of it, and he stays in it. Because
he's so comfortable with being somebody else because he's unfamiliar with who he is, right? And so that's crazy, brother, when you start to identify or adopt an identity that you know is naturally not yours, and you know it's not true. Right? So some people don't want to do the hard work. They would rather stay locked into that form of thinking than doing the tremendous amount of work that it takes to detoxify yourself internally from those things that you've been infected with, right? That cause self-hate, brother.
What about, does the fear factor play a part?
Fear factor is fear is strength. Don't know. Like, listen, let me be clear. I got a daughter I'm raising. I ain't ready to die. Not right this minute.
That's right.
Right. I'm just going to be clear. And these people will take your life. So we have multiple examples of that throughout history. So when we think about that, right, that definitely is a deterrent, man, for a bunch of people. Ain't nobody ready to die. People trying to just live.
Okay, good. Now we segueing into the future now, man, because I was the same way. I've been home for 23 years just about. And I have fought against the oppressor I came out with a powerful, forceful way that I thought was right, or may have been right, but the diplomacy may have been lacking. So I backed up, and I said, well, you know what? They're still human. They still my brother. The purpose again, this is the Glenn Cobb Senior One Heartbeat. The purpose of this one heartbeat is to know that we have to coexist with every human being.
So
every part of nature, every animal.
Right.
So the fear factor of death has left me. Regardless, if I got to leave my grandkids or my 7-year-old son out here, I have to depend on a power greater than that of man, that I can sustain myself out, and I can't live in fear. I refuse to live in fear. I'm talking about individually.
But you want so the reason why your fear is gone and you understand the ultimate price and you willing to pay that, though, so that the future generations can live.
Absolutely.
You willing to die so that they can live.
Absolutely.
So the idea is not death, it's life.
It's
but
life.
What's necessary, though, what's necessary in order for that life to be cultivated, nurtured, protected, and maintained in the natural way has to be, if it has to be done, that's what has to be done. However, for me, my thing is, of course, we have to harmonize and we have to live at peace with everybody. But when you come to somebody else's table and it's always on their terms, and you got the knowledge and the drive and the skills, to build your own table, then that's a problem.
That's
so
right.
people not going to respect you if you always begging them and got your hand out. When we start to realize our own power through proper education, realize we extract more than $1 trillion out of the American economy every year, which is more than the gross national product of some entire countries, brother.
That's
right? When we
That's right,
learn that and we learn to use our financial power in a way that benefits us, there's no politics without money. There is nothing without money. Money make everything
financial
move.
nation. There's no doubt
Money.
about it.
It's the money, and we got that money. We just want to just like, because we are so diminished in our sense of self, we like to adorn ourselves with things so that way when other people see us, they can say, he the man or she the man. And somehow we feel like that validates who we are because we are not self-defined. We see ourselves through the eyes of other people. So we got to make ourselves look a certain way so when they see us, they can say something good about us so we can feel good about ourselves.
Yeah, that's a sad
That's
situation.
terrible,
That's
brother.
a sad situation.
Because that means you're a slave to somebody else's opinion.
What you worship another God.
You are. So that's what it is. You in service to the absolutely.
Okay, so now that brings me to this point right here. I had to, the last time I was in prison, before my son was born, Queen Khadijah is my daughter. And I told Allah, God, the Most High, the sustainer of the worlds, master of the day of judgment. I said, listen, I've been a male all my life. I was born a male. I wasn't born a man. And the physical man. Okay, now I said, I need to be in here and you teach me how to get here and stand on my foot, even if it takes my life. But I had to go back to the roots, and my roots, man, happened to be in a Christian church. When even though these old spiritual songs that I hate today, okay, I hate the gospel song. I can't hardly stand those either. But the one thing I could stand that resonates with me right now, brother Mataka, is that they talked about Jenna and Jenahim, man. They talked about heaven and hell, and they gave me a sense of fear of the one who created everything that's out here.
So let's look at this from a bigger perspective.
Okay,
right?
Now we're talking. Okay, I thought that
let's look at this from a bigger perspective, brother.
Okay.
There is no end to anything.
That's right. That's right.
There is only transition and transformation.
Okay, now that's what I want to hear. Come on.
Yeah, there is no end to anything.
That's right.
How you transition is based on the life that you live here, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
So if I'm in the 3rd grade, right, and my grades are not up to par, I'm in class clowning, brother. You hear me acting a fool?
And you probably was in the 3rd grade.
No, in the 5th grade, bro. My teacher had to move my desk next to hers, brother. But it's the best academic year that I had, according to Western education anyway. It was the year of indoctrination, I guess.
Praise be to Allah. Praise be to God, brother.
But it was beautiful, brother. So when we look at like how nothing ever ends, and if I'm in the 3rd grade and I'm not comprehending the lessons and I'm acting a fool and I'm not dedicated, do I think I'm gonna advance to the next stage?
It don't make sense, does it?
No, I'm gonna get set back.
You set back.
Set back is Jahannam.
Jahannam. That's right.
Jannah is moving forward.
That's right.
Right. That's moving forward. So
That's right.
what we want to do is we want to constantly strive to move forward. So how do you do it? But the instructions are right there. And then it's crazy, brother, because like it's in your nature. Like
That's
you
right.
already know. The thing is, we've been trained away from our nature. And one thing the scriptures do, right? The word scripture being the root of the word, the root word being script, right? Which is something that you act out, right? And the best actors is the ones who get the acknowledgement and the rewards. So I want to be the best actor in that sense, right? So when my day come up, we can say the Oscar goes to, or the game to Jahannam. I mean, Jahannam. I keep saying Jannah, when we get to that, we're gonna let that's the Oscar. This brother.
That's right.
Yes,
that's
sir.
Right.
So we
right.
want to be able to live out in the best way we can. But brother, what we have been so like beat down and diminished, and our concept and connection with the true spiritual force has been disrupted, right? To where we don't pay no attention to that. Right? It's just here and now. I gotta get it now.
Okay, good. Okay, leads me to the next question. When you say, I know the plight, right? But I wanted to ask this question because, see, what I've done, I did a study, brother, and I encourage anyone out there to do the same study. Go to the churches go to the mosque, go to the churches where the so-called white people go and the so-called black people go, where the so-called Methodists go, the AME goes, the progressives go. All these churches, you go to them.
All them terms for people who still teaching the same doctrine.
Simple as that. But however, this is the thing that I've noticed about all of them, brother, is that none of them talk about Jenna or Jenna.
So this is what
if they do is very, very small. If they doing an hour and 30 minutes or even 30 minutes down at the mosque,
right?
They don't talk about that, man. And when I was a kid, 7 years old, at St. Paul AME, they would just scare me about going to hell or going to heaven.
We got to have a balance. Sometimes we could be so looking forward to when we leave here till we can neglect our duty while we're here.
Absolutely.
So it has to be a balance, right? And I think, man, that us as a people who are the descendants of slaves, people who were helpless, who felt helpless in their condition, all they had to look forward to was heaven. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. So that was the central focus of a lot of their sermons because it was finally relief from this enslavement.
Swing down, sweet cherry, stop and let me ride.
Hey, speaking of that, I don't want to lose this point, brother.
Okay, go ahead, brother.
Talking about gospel songs and stuff. It's funny to me how people, I'd had this conversation. Man, you still listen to R. Kelly's music? Well, do you still sing Amazing Grace by John Newton?
John Newton, brother.
Man, they better study that, man. That man used to kidnap little black girls, man, and then divide them up among his ship crew to have their way. Yeah. And he referred to them as prey. Yeah. Human beings.
That's right.
But now we singing this song like it's popping in the church. Even Barack led them in it.
That's right.
Come on, man.
That's right.
He done lended some legitimacy to a dude who was a enslaver and a raper of black girls. But we want to talk about R. Kelly, and then today they singing that stuff in these churches. We don't know the origin of a lot of these things that we be doing. We man, brother.
Brother, I see. I feel. No. You know, one thing about this, man. I don't edit this. Okay. It's rough, rugged, and raw, brother. Okay. They need to hear from somebody who got the education. Because see, I'm guilty of the same thing. I've sung Amazing Grace.
Me too.
And sometimes I've known it. And I said to myself, should I soften my heart to say, okay, the words do kind of fit me because I was wretched. So I get to thinking like that instead of thinking about, okay.
You don't need nobody to construct that in the form of a tune for you who enslaved our people.
That's right.
You know how to sing that yourself.
But this is another thing, brother.
Go ahead.
This is another thing. When I was out there in them bricks, in and out of institution for 23 years, some type of jail, probation, parole, or prison, don't you know that I learned more from the adversary than I did from my own family that I had left and went to the streets? So I took the learning from that adversary, Shaitan, that devil, Lucifer, Iblis, and I took those and I twisted them.
Right.
So I think
that's how you get it, because he said he gonna make wrong first semen. He gonna flip the natural order. So flip it back around.
So flip it back around. So I took Amazing Grace, right? I flipped it, brother. I flipped it. And guess what? I taught it to the very people of the cousins who John Newton represent. I let them know that. What you just let the world know,
right?
We don't do that, man, because we think that we're not going to be able to
then we got all types of
whoever.
This is what's crazy. I've heard people say, well, he changed his life. He did this. Listen, man, I know forgiveness is for me.
That's right.
Because I don't want to be controlled by a hate or an anger.
That's right.
That diminishes the divinity that I have and prevents me from realizing my purpose. So forgiveness is for me.
It's a separate program, brother.
Yeah. I'm forgiving. I'm not going to hold on to the stuff, but I'm not going to lose sight of the mission.
That's right. That's right.
It's just not going to be driven by hate.
That's right.
It's going to be driven by love and righteousness.
See, and that's another thing that I like, man. I tell you, you are one of the very few people I don't even have to ask a question to. I love turning it up a little bit on you, man. 'Cause I know your speed.
You said the other day, I just go. I have to slow down. I do.
But you know, I want everybody to know this is Mataka Askari, man. The brother is a beautiful brother. He's a beautiful soul. He's got the fire lit in his heart and his mind and his spirit, man. And I believe that I'll get behind anything he's trying to do out here, man. That's the honest to God truth. Because I know, I've seen, and believe me, being out here for over 22 years, I've seen a lot of brothers I did time with that I went back in and met, and I have never, I ain't gonna say never, but I bet you they never 3% of them that came out here and did something positive, man. that know the science, brother.
Yeah, a lot of people, man. So like there is. So when we talk about ignorance, right? I always tell people there's a two-pronged connotation to ignorance. So what that means is we have a natural ignorance. Like somebody got to teach us how to tie our shoes.
Just
right?
don't know.
Yeah, we don't know. And then there's an ignorance that is, it indicates what the real root of the word is, ignore. What it means is we have been conditioned to believe something so deeply, it's so deeply embedded in us that we disregard, reject, or ignore that which does not fit our already established belief systems. And even when we get information that appears to the contrary, man, it might not be powerful enough. And I'm going to give you an example, a perfect example of how you can know better, but still be unsuccessful about addressing certain things that have impacted you that are false. If I tell people, close your eyes and imagine Jesus, the first image going to pop up is that untrue, false. And we know, man, we can talk about his genealogy, the geographical location.
And we go to the book. We go to the book.
But in our minds, though,
because that's been embedded so deep, brother.
And so that means that even in the face of corrective information, we still are not able to exercise that demon. And when it's still there, that means it's impacting our behavior, whether we know it or not. And that's a lot of ways, man, that a lot of these brothers, they be knowing that stuff when they in there. You hear me?
Get out.
Then because it is not allowed them to go deep enough to undo some of the stuff that can truly transform their behavior.
That's right, man. That leads me to this right here before we end it, man. I know we can go all day because you said something that the brothers, when I was studying, man, in the 80s and 90s, man, inside the wall, I used to, I was demonstrating with the Mo brothers, right? And they used to say one thing about the mind never does forget. How many times have we heard that in the years you've been
Man, a lot.
So what you said about Jesus and the way they portrayed him as this blonde-haired, blue-eyed guy that's soft,
Right.
It's just totally different from the Jesus that I know.
Yeah, because the scripture don't support that image at all.
Not at all, brother. But this is my thing. You're right. Whenever we think of Jesus, they're going to, just like that, a blue horse in the courtroom. You know what I mean?
Well, let me ask you a question.
Go ahead.
If that, right, is something that we can identify that's still in us, and no matter how much we study, it's still there, and we know if you believe something, it impacts your behavior in one shape, form, or fashion. If we can identify that because it's obvious, what about the things we can't identify that's driving our behavior?
Absolutely. And that's knowing self, like you said before.
And so you have to, yes, sir, brother.
Your education don't end, man. But see, this is the thing they said that the oppressor said about us, and I can say the so-called white man said, if you want to keep something from a nigga, put it in a book.
Put it in a book. Because they don't read nothing. Because you know why? Number one, they told us if we read, we're gonna kill you. Number one. Number two, we didn't understand. A lot of us did not understand the value of information, right? But some of our people who bled, sweat, and died, they understood, brother, the power of information, and they knew that somewhere in knowledge was the key to our liberation. But this is, I'm gonna take, I just want to connect this because as I'm looking at this picture of my hero, Malcolm, it just takes me back, bro.
I don't want to put him on the wall. I had to, man.
It takes me back. So, you got a lot of people who practice various spiritual beliefs, right? And so when we look at our history in this country, I would have to identify the thing that I felt that I first came into contact with that started to transform my behavior was more science. I had never heard nothing like that. Yeah. We was who? We came from where? Man, this dude tripping.
Right.
And then, right, as I studied that, right, I started to learn about the Honorable Elijah Muhammad.
That's
and of course, that's from Malcolm.
That's right.
And I always tie this. I say when a lot of people love Tupac, but what people don't know is let's connect the dots. So Tupac was a product of the Black Panthers. The Black Panthers were born from Malcolm X's ideology. Absolutely. Malcolm X came from Elijah Muhammad, and he tied to Noble Drew Ali. So shout out to Noble Drew Ali for Pop.
And the 5%.
And the poor righteous teachers.
Yes, sir. That's right.
And
Absolutely.
The poor righteous teachers.
Ain't no doubt about it. You know what I mean?
And so, you got a lot of brothers.
And the Panthers.
And all of them.
But
this is something that I and a lot of people, especially when they come from different countries and they see the brothers in the nation or they see the brothers in the temple, they tend to have an issue with how they practice their spiritual beliefs. But this is what I'm going to say. Especially brothers over here who've been in this country and we start adopting this orthodox things, and then we start to say, hey, man,